Little Bit Man has given me some information dating back from April, and we've been continuously working on it. I told him I would take more of the deeper dive into this and so on. You're going to see some things referenced in regards to some laws, actually here locally, certain states here in the United States. So it's all going to come full circle, and it's definitely worth referencing. None of this is financial advice, it's research. Do with it as you choose, but I thought it was extremely interesting to see what is happening. So we're going to start off with the first part of this, and then we're getting more into the key highlight of Sony. But yeah, let's pull this up, and we're going to start with the Nikkei of Asia. Here it is, straight from the Nikkei. And a while back, basically speaking, you see this announcement. NTT works to turn next-gen IOWN optical network into global standard. Now, we have talked about the whole thing of, for example, ISO standards, ISO, IEC, JTC1. There's this other one about 27001. So ISO with standards and how Jasmy could basically apply to that. We saw that Bijit, who Kunitake Ando, Kazuma Sasato were also part of, they became an ISO standard. Not Jasmy, but Bijit, and that's a big plug. So global standards are always going to be a big deal, and I thought we'd get more into this. Let's share this. Again, this is from last month. I'll bring a little bit more towards the present here in a bit, but I want to share this with you guys. I did think it was a big deal. I think he thinks it's a big deal, and it's something that kind of flew under the radar. So let's get into this. You do see this whole post, technically April 13th, but the point is Nippon Telegraph and Telephone gearing up to turn IOWN optical network into global standard for next generation communications almost 5 years after first announcing the initiative. Were you aware that they had an expo in San Francisco targeting NTT's key clients? And I love this statement here. Japanese telecom group showcased a variety of technologies from security to its proprietary Tsunami large-scale language model. You had the whole thing of IOWN, Innovation Optical Wireless Network, but they took the center stage last month, and they also even had a booth that was dedicated to the tech and how they outline what they're going to do with what? Yeah, you read it right. NTT successfully connected data centers around 4 kilometers away from each other in the US and even 89 kilometers apart in the UK within what? 1 millisecond. That's cool. You may be asking, what the heck does it have to do with Jasmy? I understand that. We're going to get more into this. Because you know what? We have talked about Jasmy and data centers, and more importantly, transcosmos. Sometimes I have to remind you guys, especially if you're new. So demand for data centers is surging with the spread of generative artificial intelligence. You respect that because there is your AI plug with Jasmy's Junction. But building new facilities in dense urban areas is difficult. The ability to connect multiple data centers without delays would let operators consider more remote sites instead. So there's a lot of information in regards to this. I didn't want to get to all the specific things, but what I did like was when you go further down, you see the whole thing that really caught like my eye and also Lil Bidman in this statement. The focus heavily on U.S. when it comes to IOWN. This guy, Sawada, launched the U.S.-based IOWN Global Forum with who? Sony Group. Yeah, that's right, Sony Group. And even Intel back in January 2020. Now, we understand and cover this for a while, not just me, but you have other people that came into the mix. You have executives like Intel CEO Bob Swan and Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Now, I've covered this. A lot of us covered this, part of this research consortium. But the whole point of people being able to argue that the U.S. has strong services of their own, that's why they brought them into the fold first. All right, so what exactly is this? Well, on the notes, before I kick it into this next part, Mr. Lil Bidman pointed out some key things that I think I need to share with you guys. So when we get more into this outline, you're going to see, specifically speaking, that, it's a statement when he reread the article about these 2 passages that stood out. What are the 2 passages? Well, I'm going to take you to it. And it's right below this gentleman's picture. Let's go ahead and full screen this a bit. It's this. It's about Sawada becoming the chairman of Japan-U.S. Business Council back in 2021. Following the footsteps of Sony's Akio Morita, right? That's a superstar if you want to get technical for Sony. Mitsubishi Corp's Minoru Makihara and other executives have focused heavily on the U.S. We also pointed out last month that even though Sawada didn't attend the latest event in San Francisco, he was accompanied by Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Remember how we talked about this? Remember how we talked about the official trip to Washington, and you saw that picture with President Biden and so on? Well, the thing that caught little Bidman's attention, where he wanted to read it twice, is this. NTT does not make hardware. Figuring out how to apply ION to its products and services is critical. And here is your aha moment in regards to if anybody here has ever read the Jasmy white paper. It says here that U.S. tech giants, known collectively as GAFA, well, it used to be called GAFA, now it's called GAFAM, Google, Apple, Facebook, which is now Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft, both rivals and clients. Remember how I talked about Jasmy being the disruptor, the kryptonite of that? It says, we won't confine ION to Japan. We'll make it a global standard. Everyone appreciate why we take these deep dives and share some of this stuff, even though it doesn't say necessary Jasmy sometimes, and sometimes we confirm it, and especially like the Panasonic thing. But this whole thing about Bijit, BJIT, Kazumasa Sato, Kunitake Honda, global standards. ISO 27, was it ISO IEC 27001? That becoming a standard. So again, if you're new to all this, understanding the bigger picture, really a bigger picture, not just recognizing that this is just a coin that could, go to 50 cents or dollar and so on, but literally there's going to be so many people are going to paper hand the living hell of this, not realizing there's a bigger picture with laws that are put into place, and most importantly, some of the things that we're going to highlight here tonight. So I like this other statement where it talks about how ION NTT instead worked to form a partnership including overseas players. Look at this. From the very early stages. They, of course, had challenges. What company doesn't, guys? But the point is, 140 companies now part of the ION Global Forum. About half are in Japanese. Only a handful are based in the US. Remember how we also pointed out that Kunitake Ando got that office in Silicon Valley, San Francisco Bay Area? Telling you flat out, all of the research is there for this strategic shift to position Jasmy for the future. It was inceptionalized even before Jasmy went public in 2021 with a token offering. This was dating back to, I believe, 2016 as a direct reaction from Shinzo Abe's address to the nation and also America for investing into these startups, right? Private sector. So I want to go further down about this, and you see how it's these further partnerships and having even this whole thing of like Japanese companies exploring the wide range of possibilities. And how many times do we reference this? The possibilities available through optical semiconductors, through partnerships like Global Innovation or Innovative Optical and Wireless Networks, which is, the ION Forum. So remember when Jasmy took off big time, guys? I mean, I understand there's some new people here, and welcome. I'd like to welcome you. The key thing is recognizing that Jasmy really took off from the 0.00, fives and sixes to over a penny. And then the next big leap was to 2 cents. And we're kind of been hovering around that for a bit, dropping below and so on because of the market. I'm going to now jump into the next part of highlighting why I feel as though this is so darn important. So it's this right here, okay? And I've gone ahead and full screen this. So basically speaking, there's some notes that we should get into for just a bit. You have this whole thing of Lil Bidman in his notes to me. stating that if you check the Sony LinkedIn, which we are going to do here in a bit, there were over 20 data-related positions in the United States alone that just opened up. He's never seen so many posted at once. Same here. And in random states like Colorado, Virginia, Florida, and New Mexico. Now, I'm not going to get into like New Mexico and so on, but for the purposes of tonight, I thought I'd give you at least 2 or 3 examples that we'll get into by the end of the outline. But guys, the point is recognizing that it's the states and what they're doing in regards to privacy laws, strategically speaking, and what Sony's looking to do. While Lil Medman is not sure if all those states stepped up their data privacy compliance, he's trying to find a common thread in it all. And I told him I would try to dig into it, find out more information. So that's what we're doing here tonight. Let's jump into this. Let's full screen this. So you see here this screenshot that he took, as in Little Bidman. And please give Little Bidman a follow on X. He totally deserves your support. It mentions this position summary. It says, at Sony, exponential data growth and proliferation of data sources, other opportunities for unprecedented insights that can drive innovation, enhance decision-making, unlock new revenue streams. Enabling Sony to unlock such potential through data requires effective democratization of data and disciplined governance. Literally, in the Jasmy white paper, it cites that exact same thing. You don't believe me? Look it up for yourself. As such, the Data Enablement Group, which sits within Sony's digital transformation DX division, is seeking an experienced senior manager to lead our efforts in ensuring effective stewardship of data assets within our organization. Pivotal role will encompass key facets of data governance and democratization. Boom, back to the white paper once again, with emphasis in data privacy, compliance, and discoverability of data through data cataloging. That gives all this info, okay? And tons of things being mentioned here. And now it literally will take you to the site. But, wanted to zoom in a little bit more. So here it is from LinkedIn. Let's jump into that. If you want to see it yourself, you can go to linkedin.com/Jubes. That's my friend's gamer name. Jobs. Shout out to Jubes. Anyway, /view/386-361-3053. I'm going to drop in the comments because it's kind of a short link anyway. As you can see, Sony posted this, so it's official. Let's zoom in a little bit more. And how many times do you see data mentioned here? Many times. But what I love that was posted about the qualifications, they want to see at least an undergraduate degree in information systems or related fields. Now, when we talked about the ISO standard, you understand that that was focused in information systems. Of course, a master's is, I guess, important to him, teach his own. But 7+ years in relevant experience in data field. Look at this. Data governance or data privacy. Boom, that's Jasmy. Data project management, also mentioned in the white paper. Data cataloging, that's another term brought up. And I will show you a little bit about this from the white paper, just for the yahoos that come in the chat and make a disturbance. So metadata management, you have strong understanding of relationship database, ETL concepts, but most importantly, look what it says here. Note, this position is not suitable for those seeking a career in analytics, though, data science or data engineering. Why is that? Well, from my interpretation, why would they need that when they have somebody like Tadashi Morita, who is an expert in that field? As I got more into this, zoom this in a little bit more, you will see that they get more into this, like the pay, where they're going to put this at, and so on. They even reference some of the laws. So I thought it was really interesting. And getting back to the whole thing of the white paper, what's most interesting about the whole thing is some people have pointed out that, well, I don't know. This is you trying to share something in regards to the United States. Well, yeah, of course. Well, we don't have nobody connected to the United States. That's just a bunch of gibberish. You sure about that? Look at this. Let's zoom in about this. What does this show right here? You have Representative Director Kunitake Ando. This is straight from the white paper. Former president, COO of Sony Corporation. President of who? Yeah, that's right. U.S. Sony Engineering Manufacturing of America. He's always been your plug. He's always been your connect. So that's definitely worth pointing out. As we get more into this, back to the whole thing of, does this match everything that was posted from the Nikkei and most importantly from Indeed? The answer is yes. How so? All we had to do is go where? Right here. What is this? This is the white paper. This is the Jasmy white paper. And what does it also show here? They have a solution for the whole thing. And it says, unlike the current centralized world, we will build an IoT platform suitable for the idea of Jasmy decentralized data democracy. Through the Jasmy platform, we will endeavor to accelerate the use of data and instill the concept of what? Data democracy. Pursuing the convenience of data utilization, they believe that a data democracy is essential for society where individuals and companies can provide data to each other without hesitation or stress, not only for their own benefit, but also for the common good of society as a whole. For this reason, they will pursue and achieve the two objectives. Number one, security of all data around oneself as an individual, such as IDs, applications, logs, data from IoT devices, their uses, storage, maintenance. Go back to what? Go back to the Indeed post. Seriously, we're just going to do that right now. Because when we get back to this, you will see specifically some of the terms that were mentioned here. How many freaking times do we see it? You see it quite a few times because it talks about some of this stuff. Data enablement, group. Data democratization. Data governments. I mean, at the end of the day, I could put 2 and 2 together just as much as the next guy, and so can you. This is why we share some of this stuff. Data cataloging. That's even mentioned in the white paper. So this all matches up. You better believe it matches up. How about this other thing? Remember how we talked about the internet of trust? What about the internet of value? Well, also referenced in the white paper. And I understand a lot of people don't read the white paper, but it says it all plain as day right here. Jasmy believes that data that contributes to individuals, companies, and even the whole society needs to be a place where its value can be recognized. This value shall be built by democratically decision-making environment in a decentralized world rather than being determined by a central authority. Boom. There is why we reference GAFA, now known as GAFM. Jasmy has always been keeping in mind that the Jasmy platform functions as a place to create value for the data generated. And now back to what? You have this huge job posting. I mean, shout out to Little Bidman. Great freaking catch. I love the research community that we have here. Unlike any other. You know, it's a consortium of people coming together for the bigger picture. Now, let's get into the next part of this, because you want to know something? I came to the conclusion that we need to jump into some of these things. So, do you know that, for example, there are some states that were added to the mix in regards to personal data compliance? So, for this example, I'm going to get into Colorado, okay? And I'm going to share this with you guys as well. Let's go ahead and share this full screen, get into the nitty gritty. And here is Colorado Privacy Act. It's called basically the CPA. I'm going to full screen this for you can see it just a little bit better. And I'm going to blow it up a little bit more. You're going to see here that this Privacy Act actually started in 2021, but there were some updates in regards to this, guys. So on July 7th, 2021, Governor, I probably not pronounced this right, Polis, signed Senate Bill 21-190. It's, Protect Personal Data Privacy, establishing the, Colorado Privacy Act, CPA. CPA tasked the Colorado Attorney General with implementing and enforcing the CPA, including adopting new rules. The CPA is part of the state of Colorado's Consumer Protection Act, goes into effect July 1st, 2023. Look at this for a second, guys. The CPA grants Colorado consumers new rights with respect to their personal data, including the right to access, delete, correct their personal data, as well as the right to opt out of the sale of their what? Look at this. Personal data or its use for targeted advertising or certain kinds of profiling. And now we have this huge posting from Who? Sony? About all these jobs? Yeah, I love it how Little Big Man connects the dots on this. And let's face it, I think some of you guys can appreciate it as well. So CPA places new obligations on covered entities to safeguard personal data, including a requirement to give people in Colorado meaningful information about the collection and use of their data, to conduct data protection assessments, and to obtain consent before processing certain sensitive personal data. Huh. Interesting. And of course, there's enforcement and there's updates and so on. Okay, so that's Colorado. That's update in regards to Colorado. So Little Big Man is onto something. Is there more? Well, yeah. Let's understand a little bit more about this. This is another site called secureprivacy.ai, understanding the Colorado Privacy Act, CPA, and implications for data privacy. So it goes into some of this key stuff, but my main thing for you guys was understanding that this statement here, right? Because we want to look at the bigger picture. Does Colorado Privacy Act apply to my business? Well, look what it says. Control the processing of personal data for 100,000 Colorado consumers or more. Control the processing of personal data by 25,000 Colorado residents or more, and derive revenue from the sale of personal data. We talk about utility motion, everything that we studied over the last 2 years in regards to Jasmy and their mission and so on. You can have an idea and appreciate laws being passed to put this sucker into motion. Now, some people feel as though, we'll never see it here in the United States. That's nonsense. You can literally see the writing on the wall. Getting into the next example I want to get into, I want to read this real quick in regards to my notes. And that basically is a tad bit more. So Colorado Privacy Act, CPA, applying to these businesses and so on. The CPA requires businesses to be transparent, how they collect, how they store, how they use, how they share, and sell personal data. Minimizing the amount of data they collect and store, avoiding using data for secondary purposes. Think about what happens with GAFA M, right? And what they do with all that. This particular law allows for reasonable security practice, respond to requests from individuals who assert their rights under this particular privacy law. Data privacy laws, guys. Provide a privacy notice, obtain consent for collecting certain types of information, but most importantly, these two things: specify the purpose for collecting and processing personal data, and more importantly, to enter into data processing agreements, which are called DPAs, with processors. If you have studied Jasmy, this is an all in alignment with their mission of data democratization through their utility of what? The personal data locker and secure knowledge proof. For example, platinum data or platinum data with trust, data free flow with trust. And who is the advocate that's pushing this agenda probably more than anybody else out there in the world? Is Taro Kono. And you can also see how we have, as of lately, even the United States, with what? Those recent announcements of what you've been seeing here with the House and Senate trying to potentially get this thing going, but it's not called data free flow with trust, but they're using that template. Look into it yourself. Do I have more examples other than just Colorado? I do. The next part I want to get into is understanding this. This is now Virginia. Because you know what? I want to use this as an example. This is good stuff. It gives you an idea of mass adoption. Do not get fudded out of your Jasmy. You read a lot of stuff. It's kind of like a person that's trying to start weight loss. You're going to listen to people that never went through the journey? Probably not, right? Anyway, let's jump into the next part. You see here from Virginia Consumer Data Protection Act, which is called VCDPA. Why am I sharing this? Because it's another example that Little Big Man was talking about. As we get further into this, you will see here everything you need to know about Virginia's comprehensive data privacy law. Now, I'm not trying to make this a session about law, may seem like it, but these are good examples to get us to the finish line of understanding the bigger picture. So for one, everything you need to know: back in 2021, Virginia became the second state after California to enact a comprehensive consumer privacy legislation. Several key differences between the two laws. The VCDPA offers an alternative model for other states planning to enact what? Their own data and privacy protections. Interesting. I cite Bloomberg quite often, do I not? So Bloomberg talked about the whole thing of, for example, shaping state, federal, and international data privacy laws from risk mitigation to compliance to legislative initiatives affecting how companies do business. But more important, how this all comes together with authoritative analysis on privacy and security or data security laws. So as I got into this, I saw this highlight and back to even what Colorado is doing, and it's in line. How is it so? Back to everything we covered from the beginning. And key numbers. Look what it says. Entities conducting business, even in Virginia. Guys, follow in line with this. And that is the number of affected consumers. Boom. Same in alignment with Colorado. Subject to law, entities must control or process, and what is it? Personal data of at least 100,000 consumers in a calendar year. The personal data of at least 25,000 consumers while deriving over 50% of gross revenue for or from the sale of that data. I'm telling you guys, I don't know if you guys follow this enough, but you really need to follow it enough. I'm telling you flat out. I know I'm getting a little hyped on this, but it excites me because we study utility in motion and we're not at mass adoption yet. There was a time for all of us. My God, there was a time for all of us. I witnessed it myself being a teenager in the 90s. You guys witnessed it. You're older, younger, whatever the case be. But Google did big things. Search engines did big things, but most importantly, Google centralized data and how that monopolized the whole thing. As we speak, our phones are listening to us as we speak, monopolizing and earning money on that important data, that oil, that driving. You talk about the war machine. What about the data machine collecting all this data and shooting it out to everybody that's just drooling over our personal data? How about having an industry disruptor part of the mix? And if anything, an industry giant such as Sony that is going to access, like Jasmy, what they provide, because they are the ones that the first regulatory compliant one out there. People who haven't studied Jasmy, people who want to enter in your chat, that want to get into the nonsense because they bought the height of Jasmy. Let's just be honest about that. And they're pissed off. I understand you guys are pissed off. That sucks. Guess what? I'm pissed off about my Cardano. But you don't see me going into Cardano communities and bashing all those people because I'm butthurt about my Cardano. No. Instead, I want to find out what the heck is going on. And I want to understand and study all these things. And I want to see where this data is going to go to. Right? So let's get into the subject at hand. We talked about all of this. And most importantly, these laws. So you have great examples about how this all came into effect. And back to Bloomberg. Here it is. Let's zoom in a little bit more. You'll see here some really interesting things. So what rights do consumers have? Some of us don't even know about this. In Virginia alone, they specify 6 consumer rights. The right to confirm whether a controller is processing their consumer's personal data. The right to access that personal data processed by a controller. Boom. All these things are in alignment to what Jasmy mentioned in the white paper. The right to correct inaccuracies in the consumer's personal data. Number 4, the right to delete personal data provided by or obtained by the consumer. The right to obtain that data. This last part, to opt out. This is, again, if I don't know how many people really read the white paper, and it's okay. But if you were to look into it, you will see how this is in alignment of everything. And most importantly, these 2 subjects, processing that personal data, and the other part, targeting advertising. Targeted advertising, remember how we talked about just before when I was back on the screen with you guys? Means displaying advertisements to a consumer where the advertisement is selected based on a personal data obtained from the consumer's activities or the time and across non-affiliated websites, online applications to predict such consumers' preferences or interests. Aha! Boom! There's your boil it, mash it, stick it in stew moment. And why is that? On the first segment of the night, we talked about what? We talked about Jasmy, talked about Junction, and we talked about 10. There is your boil it, mash it, stick it in stew moment for 10. I would tune into that. And if you can't tune into that, listen to the recorded segment, and maybe we'll get into it a little bit more later this week. You gotta appreciate that at least Hara, even though some of these fudders want to come after him and make fun of him and so on and all this and all that, hey, They're strategically going after the bigger picture. I appreciate that. I'm glad they're doing that. All right, the next particular part. So I have one or two more examples before I get done talking about law, because I don't want to talk about law every day. I'm not a lawyer, right? But I do like to study some of this stuff for the bigger picture. And that basically is the VCDPA gives Virginians the right to access their data and request that their personal information be deleted by, of course, businesses. It also requires companies to conduct data protection assessments related to processing personal data for targeting, advertising, and, of course, sales purposes. So when we say that Jasmy is the kryptonite coming after the throat, the neck of, for example, GAFA M and so on, it literally is. It is the kryptonite. What about just a tad bit more in regards to the other example? And that other example is what? Florida. How late ago was this? September 2023. Let's take you to this. This is from White and Case. It's a case study that we should all get into. As you can see right here, you will see something really interesting as well. Let's full screen this. Florida enacts the Digital Bill of Rights, joining the growing privacy landscape. It's a 9-minute read. We won't get into the whole thing, but shout out to Legrand Commission, because he apparently knows Governor DeSantis. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis recently signed Senate Bill 262 into law, adopting the Digital Bill of Rights, proposed by his office in February. Florida joins a rapidly increasing group of states such as California, Utah, Colorado, Connecticut, Virginia, Iowa, Indiana, Tennessee, Montana, and even Texas, together with what they refer to as U.S. data privacy laws. With comprehensive data privacy laws, and look at this, Max only quotes the past. That's what some of the fudders tell me. The Florida Digital Rights, or Bill of Rights, FDBR, is set to take effect when? July 1st, 2024. Wow. Unlike other U.S. state data privacy laws, the FDBR has higher jurisdictional thresholds. It will result in fewer entities being subject to the law. Additionally, the FDBR incorporates several unique provisions that provide expanded opt-out rights. Boom, back to that again. Protections for children online and prohibits, on government's official moderating content. There's more about all this, but you can see, for example, how it all comes together. Operate an app store, digital distribution platform with at least 250,000 different software applications, consumer to download and install. Talk about consumer sensitive data, biometric data. Look at that. Personal data. Interesting. And they talk about the rights. This just pounds home everything we talked about, even from those other states. And that's why I wanted to share that with you and get more into, as I would say, the nitty gritty. Okay? Getting into this next particular part. Do you know that you could track the progress of all this? Yeah, you can. Let me share this with you as well. This is good stuff. This is bonus. So if you go to iapp.org, you will see here some interesting things. What is it? Well, it's a tracker that includes bills intended to be comprehensive approaches to governing the use of personal information. This was posted when? Last update, May 20th, yesterday. So that they do update it, right? Interesting how we can see this blossom. State level momentum for comprehensive privacy bills is at an all-time high. Don't let these fudders tell you otherwise. The IAPP Western Research Center actively tracks proposed and enacted comprehensive privacy bills from across the U.S. to help members stay informed of the changing state privacy landscape. Yeah, it's privacy laws. But most importantly, it's understanding where this is going to go, right? So you can follow this if you choose to do so. Here's a little bit more in regards to this tracker, okay? Let's zoom that to this. This is 2024. And you see here that they have legislative process, consumer rights, and also business obligations. For the purposes of wrapping this up here soon, I'm going to get into the consumer rights. So I like what's posted straight from this site about state comprehensive privacy law, because it gives us an idea of, yeah, it's a big deal. So right to access, the right for consumer access from a business, the data controller, boom, back to the whole Jasmy white paper. Categories, or how about this, guys? Catalogs. Catalogs was described in the Jasmy white paper. And boom, let's take it back to this again, because why do we want to also mention this? Look at this. Straight from what? LinkedIn. Data cataloging. Boom. There's your bullet mash to stick in the stew again. Collaborating with product management technology teams, develop comprehensive data catalog. Enables effective discovery, data assets available to the organization. Does what also? It includes identifying and documenting data sources, metadata management, and automation, and most importantly, develop a global support framework to assist Sony data users with data discovery. Aha. Because when you see statements of global support framework, what about global support standards? It's freaking standards. Why does Maximus put so much focus and research on standards? Now you know why. Understand the bigger picture. Understand how this all comes in full circle. Back to this. The right to correct. But I love this statement. How many times did it mention opting out of certain processes? How about opting out of these sales? The right for the consumer to opt out of the sale of personal information about the consumer to third parties. But Jasmy provides a function that gives them the right to choose. Before, we never really seen those. We have that right to choose. Some people say, yeah, we have the right to choose. It's in the fine print. True, to a degree, right? But most people blindly just hand over that data. And as a result, Google, Microsoft, and all the big players make a killing off of that money. All right. A few more things before we wrap it up. Okay? So basically speaking, which United States part of the Union have passed comprehensive data privacy laws? Here's the answer. In all my notes, basically speaking, it is California, Virginia, Connecticut, Colorado, Utah, Iowa, Indiana, Tennessee, Oregon, Montana, Texas, Delaware, Florida, New Jersey, and New Hampshire. It's interesting to see how long ago that was. And I looked at the reference from Bloomberg Law, and it was as of March 18th of 2024. Understanding the bigger picture, what happens when we have more and more states get involved with this? So this whole notion, your key takeaway before we wrap it up here in a bit with a little bit more notes, your key takeaway is understanding the bigger picture. This whole notion that some of us think that it's only about what's going on in Japan with Jasmy, Southeast Asia, and so on. Understand the bigger picture. When we talk about the United States, North America, and so on, you literally see the writing on the wall because you have to take the deeper dives. Shout out to Little Bid Man for a lot of this information. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about basically, let's see here, 3, maybe 4 things that's important in regards to all of this. So, in conclusion, we talked about Sony posting this on LinkedIn. Little Bin Man and I think it's a big deal. Okay? So, number 1, data democratization. The focus on data governance, as we know, the collaboration aligns with the idea of data democratization. Talked about that. Won't get more too into that. But what about the potential partnership, for example, with the bigger picture? Jasmy, Sony, all this, right? Guys, don't get it twisted. The fact that Jasmy's upper management are former Sony executives, and both companies are interested in data governance and democratization is more than compelling. It's more than intriguing. But you got to keep in mind, I think as though, kind of like what Rob and I were mentioning, and Jesse and so on, it's just a matter of time before you see that announcement in regards to Sony. You know, we feel as though that Panasonic was confirmed long ago, and then finally to everybody, you know, they pounded it home. So people were like, I don't see no links about Panasonic. Even on the Panasonic site mentions the partnership with Jasmy. I honestly think that Sony is already there, but, you know, you got to get something official to confirm that, right? But you guys got to keep in mind, both companies, whether it's Jasmy, Sony, and so on, are definitely interested in data governance, democratization. But Sony and Jasmy exploring a partnership in this area, it's literally spelled out a long time ago. Jasmy technology, you very well could believe, is going to help Sony comply with data privacy laws, hence why I showed even what's going on here in the United States. And it's getting value out of that data and giving people options in regards to that data and having them have a say whether they're going to opt out to use that for providing crucial, information to companies and so on. There's some things to keep in mind, and that is this. Even though there's specific nature of data related positions at Sony and the hiring process, to me it seems as though it's providing more clues about their plans, NDAs and so on. Sometimes we can't find the information, like I pointed out, from the X platform, have to go to Indeed. How do we know that? Examples from Quant, examples from Stellar, examples from a lot of these different industry players. They're part of the bigger picture. The distribution of the jobs that were shown across different states may very well be due to the varying privacy regulations in each state, but out of those 15 that we showed at the end, it does seem as though they're all in a line for a bigger picture, and more specifically, the number of annual users, right? So while Sony's on a hiring spree, it is, in fact, in my opinion, a sign that they are taking data privacy and data governance very extremely seriously. It'll be interesting to see how this develops, and especially how Jasmy plays a role in this bigger picture of things. But for me, I already see the writing on the wall. Why do people want to wait until all this stuff blasts off and that's when they want to get into it? Oh, I haven't seen any official announcements, blah, blah, blah. Want to know something? We'll be glad that we didn't give into all of that flood and we recognize the opportunities before they blasted off. So with that said, that's going to conclude the Jasmy coverage of the night. Great to be able to do a deep dive, unofficial collaboration with the one and only Lil Bidman. You can follow him over on the X platform, just like you can follow me. Some of you guys ask what cold storage solution I use. I use this, and it is the Decent wallet. All right. I also, of course, have a ledger like this. All right. You can get a discount basically from going into the affiliate link, which is in all the live video descriptions and recorded and so on. And for the yahoos that are out there, they're like, this is just a shield. And, we'll fix point this out. And it's a great point. Were you aware that you don't necessarily get a discount link just going straight to the site? No, you actually have to go through a platform like this. So how cool is that? I don't think anybody's complaining about that. But anyway, use the link, get a discount. There's another one here. If you're the type of person you want to get one for you and your significant other, you can get two of them. They actually have another promotion, which is this, and I think this is cool. You can get an all-in-one card wallet plus backup card package. Interesting. I thought that was cool. And again, one of the main key things I like about the Decent wallet is not having to do the red tape of jumping through all the hoops for XDC and the custom folder. I mean, Edward Vincent can vouch on that. Some of you guys can too as well in regards to Ledger. That was a pain in the butt. You don't have that problem. You literally open up your phone, it's on your app, track everything that's going on, right? And saying goes, not your keys, not your crypto. You know the drill. Check it all out though if you wish to do so. It is truly the cold storage solution that I use. For the most part, there's still some on Ledger that, I kind of split it up on it and so on. So it is what it is. But if I have preference over one, I'm going with this one. A lot easier to use and so on. And some people, even to this day, still ask me which one to use.